Single mom discovers the incredible secret. Her small rental is owned by a billionaire caretaker. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes as she hung the open sign at the diner where she waitressed. Another busy morning awaited her, filled with the clinking of dishes and the shouts of orders. But today, the note taped to her front door flickered through her mind like a strobe light. It was about an urgent property inspection, a vague mention of repairs and maintenance. The peeling wallpaper in their modest apartment loomed large. Was it her home or a crumbling fantasy? She brushed it off, but unease settled in her stomach. The moment she returned home, after an arduous 5-hour shift, dread greeted her. Workers were swarming the grounds, tools at the ready, ripping apart the very foundations of her life. As drills whirred and hammers crashed, chaos invaded her sanctuary, setting her nerves on edge. Deep down, she longed for stability, for the comforts Lily deserved. But perhaps the news of the billionaire owner, Max, would be a sign of progress. Could he alleviate their struggles? But who was this Max anyway? Ever stern-faced, he seemed to live in the shadows of his own wealth. She felt an instant tug pulling her two worlds apart. Riches dictated opportunity, and poverty often whispered disparagement. Did his lifestyle shift the way people viewed her? Doubts ignited in her, and her wrinkled uniform weighed heavier on her shoulders. God, what will the neighbors think? Sarah's heart raced as she felt the pressure of scrutiny intensifying, blending worry with indignation over just how much control circumstance held. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. The next days rolled in like storm clouds, each introducing Max into her world, an unexpected force amidst the chaos. Each passing glance revealed his earnestness. This was no billionaire flaunting his wealth, but rather an ordinary man burdened with the weight of his inheritance. Conversations started to flow, revealing his purpose of repairing not just properties but lives. Yet doubts lingered about proximity. How could they possibly be on the same ground? He captivated her with his humility while reminding her of the barriers that existed between them. Whispers fluttered through the community like the summer wind. She was more than aware. It draped over her, constricting choices. If she didn't retreat, would she end up being labeled as someone in pursuit of wealth and privilege? Internal conflict gnawed at her. Loyalty to her family values felt at odds with this blossoming friendship. Her heart argued with her mind, both wrestling to guide her decisions. Suddenly, a public scandal clouded Max, cascading through their small town like wildfire. Police lights pierced through her curtains, bringing fright and turmoil cascading down the blocks. Sarah could see her life flashing before her, her daughter's innocent glances, her own dreams, each weighing against the desire to stand side by side with him. Would she brave the public outrage, shattering any semblance of equilibrium for a chance to care for a man striving to make a difference? The stakes had never been higher. Her community's gossip, her family's dignity, and her own heart became a tangled mess amidst the periphery of her mind. With trust on the line, Sarah faced the question that echoed her heart. Could loyalty and integrity withstand the weight of social perception? As the days unfolded, a disquieting realization settled in. The whispered accusations surrounding Max began to percolate through Sarah's mind, creating an unsettling backdrop to their burgeoning friendship. Standing at the diner counter, she reflected on the rare conversations she shared with him. Each interaction felt like a flicker of hope, yet the shadows of circumstance crept ever closer, suffocating the potential bloom of trust they seemed to cultivate. Her role at the diner ground on as a routine, but underneath the surface, she battled an internal war. During her breaks, she caught herself staring blankly at her phone, scrolling through news stories about the scandal. Disgraced even before the facts fully emerged, Max became an archetype, the rich, flawed man whose life served as fodder for gossip columns. Would associating with him solidify her precarious status in the eyes of their town? The thought sickened her. It wasn't just about her. It was about Lily, too. Raising her daughter in an environment tainted by whispers and mistrust felt increasingly daunting. Sarah questioned whether maintaining this fragile connection with a man whose world seemed so far removed from hers was sustainable. Yet, despite the doubt, there was something undeniable in her desire to be near him. They shared laughter over shared meals, and he looked at her with a sincerity that made her feel seen, truly seen. As if the weight of her worries drifted away when they spoke, the next morning was overcast, mirroring the turmoil within her. As she prepared for another day of work, an unexpected urge compelled her to confront him directly. She needed to understand Max beyond the scandal. Arriving at the diner earlier than usual, she set her focus clear. No more veiling her feelings behind the fray of gossip or the eyes of others. This was about her. But as fate would have it, while cleaning the counters, the doorbell chimed, announcing an unplanned guest, Max himself. He looked worn, historical evidence of sleepless nights etched on his brow. Hesitation gripped her, but courage ignited like a match. The ongoing storm brewed within her heart consumed justification and whisked aside her fears. Max, she said, her voice steady but holding uncharted vulnerability. Can we talk? He stepped closer, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. As they found a booth in the corner, the clatter of dishes around them faded into silence. I don't know what is true and what is not about everything happening, she confessed, her heart racing. But I need clarity. I'm not just interested in the headlines or the rumors. I want to know who you truly are. He sighed, the burden of his silence palpable. Sarah, I wish I could tell you that it's easy, that I'm just this normal guy trying to do good. He paused, and the regret in his eyes cut through her. But the truth is complicated. My life isn't what it appears to be, but I'm trying to change that for myself and for people like you. His honesty was reassuring and frightening at once. Yet it also awoke something deeper within her, a realization that her aspirations for a better life could coexist with a journey alongside him. Her dreams for Lily were worth fighting for, even if that meant standing against a tide of opposition. As they spoke, the weight of the world seemed buoyed for a moment. But with every shared secret and exchange of vulnerability, doubt continued to cling to Sarah. Would she, in caring for Max, be sacrificing the very thing she cherished most? The boundaries seemed to blur, and the reality of her choice weighed heavily. In that instant, she understood the crux of their developing connection. Inviting the nuances of his complicated world into her life posed a risk, but perhaps risk was necessary for growth. Yet, looming was that dagger of public opinion, a reminder of harsh truths that lay ahead. When she stood to leave, Sarah knew her journey was only beginning. The thunder of "Can you truly trust him?" lingered in the air, punctuating the uncertainty that would shape her path. What would she uncover about herself as her relationship with Max deepened? The storm may have quieted around them, but a tempest brewed quietly in the depths of her heart, forcing a reckoning she'd only begun to unravel. Suddenly, the tension coiled tightly. Tomorrow's revelation was a weight she no longer could evade. Would she take a leap, or would she retreat? The next chapter awaited, with stakes running higher than ever. The next day dawned gray and dreary, an echo of yesterday's unfiltered tension. As Sarah arrived at the diner, each step felt heavier than the last, each movement soaked in anticipation. Her heart, still spinning from her conversation with Max, raced with apprehension. Thoughts tangled within her. What if she was making a monumental mistake? The very idea of becoming entwined with someone steeped in controversy gnawed at her conscience. The morning shift began sluggishly, and her interactions with customers felt mechanical. She barely noticed the familiar faces or the rhythm of orders coming in. Instead, her mind drifted. Could she entertain the thought of venturing deeper with Max? What repercussions would reverberate if she chose to embrace the connection that had begun to form? As she wiped down the tables, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the diner's chrome accents. Her disheveled hair and tired eyes mirrored the turmoil within. This wasn't just about being involved with a man marked by scandal. It was the prospect of her own growth hanging in the balance. She realized she had an opportunity to redefine her narrative not as a mother shackled by circumstance, but as a woman capable of making choices leading to an enriched life. A rush of customers shifted her focus momentarily, but in the chaos, she spotted a new face amongst the regulars. An older woman with weathered hands and keen eyes, seated alone at a booth, seemed to observe everything. The woman's gaze settled on Sarah, a friendly smile crinkling the corners of her mouth. In that moment, Sarah felt a pull, as though the woman understood more than her appearance revealed. While filling a glass of water for the woman, Sarah mustered the courage to ask, "You come here often?" The woman chuckled softly, "More than I should, but it reminds me of my youth. And dear, it's not just about the food. It's about connections. People help each other grow, you see?" Sarah took in her words, a ripple of insight washing over her. Could that be true? Could she create deep connections that spiraled into personal growth? She wanted to ask more, delve deeper, but the moment slipped away as breakfast rush interjected. Later, as the diner quieted and plates clanged away, Sarah leaned against the counter, her heart heavy with decisions yet to be made. Would she dare to reach out to Max again, extending the thin thread of connection? Or was it wiser, safer, to retreat into the walls she had cultivated around her and Lily a sanctuary away from the unpredictability of a man under a stormous cloud? After flipping the cafe sign to closed, she found herself hesitating at the back door, breath steadying as she contemplated leaving. That small voice inside her intuition spurred her onward. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling over the screen, summoned the courage to reach out to Max. Each millisecond felt like an eternity until she pressed send. A simple message. "Can we talk again? I want to understand you, I want to understand us." Moments later, her heart fluttered at the vibrating reply. "I'd like that, meet me where we talked last time?" In that instant, clarity washed over her. This was not merely a conversation. It was an invitation to explore the unknown, to uncover layers within her already shifting identity. It was a step toward her own empowerment, a chance to illuminate the darker corners of her life. As she prepared to meet Max, Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty transform into exhilarating hope, punctuated by a single thought. But what if behind every rumor was an untold truth just waiting to be uncovered? Knowledge could pave the way. Tomorrow awaited with undeniable urgency, and Sarah was ready for whatever revelations lay in store, for both of them. Would she finally unveil the truths hidden beyond the cloud of scandal, or would the shadows of doubt continue to loom? The following day, the clouds hung heavy, dimming the morning light as Sarah entered the cafe with a resolute step. Today, her mind was sharper, rid of the fog that had clouded her judgment. The prospect of meeting Max loomed before her like a twin-edged sword, both thrilling and terrifying. She couldn't afford to indulge in self-doubt. Every ounce of her energy coalesced around the singular goal of uncovering the truth about him and herself. As the morning shift commenced, her tasks felt lighter, invigorated by purpose. Customers chatted animatedly, and Sarah deftly slid through the sea of orders, her heart now synchronized with the rhythm of the diner. She was no longer just serving food. She was learning to reclaim her narrative, to step into a role defined by courage rather than fear. Just before her break, Sarah spotted the older woman once again, this time engrossed in a book. Sarah approached her table, eager for the connection the woman had mentioned before. "What are you reading?" she asked, her enthusiasm genuine. "Oh, just a little story about finding oneself amidst chaos." "How about you? What do you seek?" The woman countered, her gaze shifting from the pages to Sarah. Probing yet kind. The unexpected question made Sarah pause. In that moment, she felt a surge of vulnerability. It wasn't merely about pursuing Max. It was a quest for understanding her own identity. "I think I'm trying to find the courage to pursue things I've avoided for too long," she admitted, her voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. The woman nodded, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "That's a brave pursuit. Sometimes we have to face the storm head-on to emerge stronger on the other side." Those words ignited a flame within Sarah. With their conversation clinging to her thoughts, she took her break and stepped outside for fresh air, her mind racing as she prepared for her meeting with Max. What would he reveal? Would he embody the complexity she sensed, the layers she longed to peel back? As the hour approached, Sarah returned to the diner, her anticipation growing with each passing moment. At the designated spot, she paced, rehearsing what she might say, tackling the fear simmering beneath her brave facade. Would Max embrace honesty, or would he spiral back into the shadows of ambiguity? When he arrived, Sarah's heart quickened. His presence commanded attention, igniting a blend of anxiety and determination within her. "Hey," she greeted, an edge of vulnerability threading her tone. "Thanks for meeting me." Max flashed a tentative smile, but the storm in his eyes hinted at concealed depths. "I've been thinking about our last conversation. I'm ready to share more." His words hung in the air like a promise. Tension crackled between them as they settled at a corner table, the noise of the diner fading into the background. As they began talking, Sarah found herself leaning in, absorbing every revelation he offered. The intricacies of his life seemed woven with invisible threads, connecting them in ways she hadn't anticipated. Yet as the conversation progressed, a disneys gnawed at her confidence. Were Max's struggles too entwined with her own negligence of personal growth? It dawned on her the more she learned about his tumultuous life, the greater the reflection upon her own choices. Could she handle the embers of his past without allowing them to scorch her own present? Just as she prepared to voice her hesitations, Max leaned closer, his intensity unabashed. "What you need to understand is that I might not be what you think I am," he confessed, revealing the haunting shadows that lingered in his past. She waited for him to continue, gripped by the revelation that perhaps truth's weight could be shared. It was an intersection of their realities, both fragile yet fortified through relentless experience. Sarah realized with a start. This moment wasn't just about uncovering Max, but was a catalyst for her transformation. But as he spoke, a new fear took root. What if understanding came at too great a cost? The prospect of intertwining their fates felt different now, laden with both promise and potential peril. As the afternoon light faded and shadows deepened, the conversation foreshadowed revelations waiting to erupt, like a storm gathering intensity on the edges of the horizon. The moment of truth loomed, drawing nearer still, each word wrapping around the tension building between them. Would the impending revelations lead to mutual healing, or would they expose scars too heavy to bear? Sarah found herself caught in the pull of the unknown, and in this tempest, clarity could emerge if only she dared to confront it. The air was thick with unspoken words as Sarah grit her teeth, biting back the questions that churned in her mind. Max seemed to sense her turmoil, and for a moment, the diner around them faded into a distant hum. The connection they shared was palpable, but so were the risks that accompanied it. "Tell me," she urged, her voice steadier than she felt. "What is it you're afraid to say?" Max hesitated. His gaze wandered to the window, and Sarah could feel the weight of his past bearing down on him, the very shadows he had mentioned earlier stretching to consume the moment. She could almost see the gears turning in his mind, his internal battles raging in silence. "I made choices, bad ones. Things I regret that I can't undo," he finally admitted, his confession a raw wound exposed to the air. What kind of choices haunted him? Her heart raced, thundering in her chest. She took a deep breath, pushing aside her own fears. "We all have regrets, Max. But how do you move past them?" The question hung delicately in the air, almost whispering a challenge. His eyes flickered with an unreadable emotion. "I don't know if I can. Every time I try, it feels like I'm dragging them behind me. I'm not the person I want to be." Her desire for clarity intensified. Here was a man on the brink of collapse, yet he was willing to share his brokenness. It struck her that in his reflections lay a mirrored image of her own struggle. Was she, too, dragging her past behind her? Perhaps the moment was not only about Max but also an opportunity for her to unburden herself from the shackles of missed chances and stagnant fears. "Max," she leaned forward, vulnerability spilling from her words, "I'm trying to figure out who I really am, too. I've let life's circumstances dictate my choices for too long. But what if we could help each other?" The tension in his shoulders eased marginally. "Do you think it's possible?" "Maybe," she replied, a flicker of determination igniting. What if we hold each other accountable? Share our truths no matter how painful? As she spoke, Sarah recognized how terrifying it was to offer this kind of support. Her heart raced as the idea settled in her mind. Max's struggles were real, but so were hers, and in that moment, she understood the significance of mutual vulnerability. This was not merely a quest for understanding Max's pain. It was a trip into her own fears, emerging with two sets of baggage lightened. Max stared at her, searching her face as if contemplating the sincerity of her offer. His brow furrowed. I don't know, Sarah. It's messy. I've hurt people. Who hasn't he? She shot back, her spirit sparking with resilience. We can learn from our mistakes. Maybe the key isn't to forget the past, but to use it to reshape our futures. As the challenge slipped from her lips, a thrill shot through her. It was as though with those words she had activated a new facet of bravery. For so long, she had feared confrontation, but now, she was beckoning it. The excitement of potential change coursed through her. The silence between them grew thick again, charged with possibility. Sarah could sense Max grappling with her idea, the edges of his defensiveness softening. She watched him wrestle with the notion of honesty, a palpable tension that could either bridge their souls or pull them apart further. Okay, he said at last, his voice quieter yet steadier. Let us try. Just then, a piercing crash echoed from the diorama of the diner, the sound of a tray dropping to the ground, breaking the solemn moment. All heads turned in surprise. Sarah's stomach tightened. Distractions could easily shatter the newfound resolve between them. She glanced back at Max. She recognized the urgency of their discussion, the weight of what lay ahead. They had agreed to confront their truths, but the road would not be easy. What if I tell you my biggest regret? She whispered, the words barely escaping her lips, already feeling the weight of her admission. Max's eyes widened in genuine curiosity, hesitating as the noise behind them faded, leaving them cloaked in mutual anticipation. What is it? He prodded, leaning closer. She took a deep breath, her mind racing with memories that threatened to surface. The truth held the power to connect them or reveal fractures that shattered her resolve. And as the moment stretched, she realized the next chapter of her life hinged on that very choice. Would she step into the fire or retreat into the shadows? The air crackled with a blend of anticipation and fear. Sarah could feel every heartbeat echoing in her ears as she faced the precipice of honesty. What would she say? The memories clawed at her mind, desperate to spill into the open. Max, she ventured, her voice trembling slightly. I've always been afraid of making choices that lead to failure, but there was one moment that changed everything for me. She paused, scanning his face for reassurance. But what she found was unwavering curiosity paired with a hint of urgency. My daughter, Lily, she continued, swallowing hard. I had the chance to pursue a career I loved, but I backed out to take care of her full-time. I was so certain that I was doing the right thing, but deep down, it gnawed at me. I let fear dictate my choices, and now, I feel like I've squandered my dreams. The confession tasted bitter, but also liberating. Max nodded slowly, his expression a mix of empathy and grim understanding. You feel like you've given up a part of yourself, he said quietly. Yes, she admitted, her voice wavering. I sacrificed so much, and sometimes I resent it. It's like I've lost my identity. A brief silence enveloped them, heavy with the weight of self-revelation. Max's dark eyes bore into hers, as if he were processing the intensity of her admission. They were both grappling with their intertwining failures, which somehow fostered a deeper connection between them. What about your dreams? He asked, breaking the stillness. What did you want? I wanted to be a writer, she said, the words spilling out. I've always loved storytelling, but every time I sat down to write, I felt paralyzed by self-doubt. I convinced myself it was too late, that I couldn't find that part of myself again. Max's brows knitted together as he listened intently. What if you started small? Just write something, anything. No pressure. As he spoke, something ignited within her. For too long, she had allowed the narrative of her life to be dictated by others' expectations. The possibility of reclaiming that part of herself sent a small rush of adrenaline through her veins. You're right. I've spent so much time hiding. Maybe it's time to push forward in a different way. Exactly, he urged, urgency brightening his voice. You shouldn't have to choose one identity over another. You can carve a space for both. Sarah frowned, the fear glimmering in the back of her mind again. Could she truly commit to this? The responsibility of motherhood weighed heavily on her. What if her attempts fell flat? Feeling her uncertainty, Max continued, I've made plenty of mistakes, too. But the fear of failure can't hold us back. We have to risk vulnerability to grow. She stared at him, contemplating his words, her heart mapping a path forward through the fog. Yet, another question began to form, a reflection that was as personal as it was provocative. What about you, Max? What do you truly want? He hesitated, a shadow of conflict crossing his face. I want forgiveness from myself and for what I've done. But I don't know if I deserve it. It's a struggle. The tension shifted, morphing into a palpable urgency. She recognized the turn, the connection deepening the gravity of their discussions. Yet an unspoken fear loomed over them both. What would happen if they succeeded? Would they embrace change? Or would their pasts keep them shackled? I think we should give ourselves the chance to take those bold leaps, even if they're uncomfortable, Sarah said, emboldened. The challenge of uncertainty sparked a flicker of resolve. Max considered her words, a spark igniting behind his eyes as he nodded slowly. Then let us begin together. His commitment resonated with her, amplifying the pressure to act. But just as relief began to settle, an unexpected doubt crept in. Could she trust that both of them had the courage to uphold their mutual promises? The silence was thick with implications, leaving their future hanging delicately. Sarah, Max cautioned, his voice low, if we're aiming for forgiveness, we'll need to confront what stands in our way. Are you ready for that? The question loomed before her, a doorway that begged for entry. In that moment, everything felt suspended, teetering on the brink of vulnerability and healing. Would she face her fears head-on, or allow the shadows of regret to loom larger? Determined to take a step forward, Sarah realized that courage wouldn't merely come from external sources, it had to arise from within. The prospect of reclaiming her voice felt both frightening and exhilarating, and with that resolve echoing in her heart, she found herself on the threshold of a new beginning, aware that what lay ahead was uncertain yet undeniably necessary. What would she discover next about herself, about forgiveness, or the true weight of shared regret? The next day dawned with a heaviness that lingered in the air, tainted by Sarah's restless nights. She sat upright in bed, the clarity of her realization from the day before still crystallized in her mind. Something had shifted in her. A small but unmistakable spark of resolve simmered beneath her surface. It was a light that had long been dimmed by routine and self-doubt. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, filling the space with a dark, rich aroma that grounded her. As she sipped the first warm hit of caffeine, she could feel the beat of her heart against the stillness of the house. Such a mundane act, but today, it felt like an act of defiance against the fears that had silenced her for so long. Her writing desk stood at the corner of the room, cluttered with old notebooks filled with half-finished thoughts. The mere sight of it nudged at her with a mix of nostalgia and longing. Today, she told herself she would write. She owed it to herself, to the vibrant dreams that lay dormant, ready to resurface. After dropping Lily off at school, she returned home with both excitement and trepidation. She sat before the desk, the open notebook yawning before her, blank pages mocking her hesitation. But something about that emptiness invoked a thrilling sense of possibility. Thoughts stirred within her like a restless ocean. Instead of allowing anxiety to overwhelm her, she focused on the flickers of inspiration that Max had ignited. What if she wrote about the very fears that had held her back? The fears that had dictated her life choices. As the first words flowed onto the page, the rhythm of her thoughts transformed into sentences. Each pen stroke was an act of reclamation. Every word pulled her further away from the shadows of self-doubt. Halfway through the afternoon, Sarah found herself in a trance, exploring a narrative where the main character confronted her fears, embracing the messy, unpredictable path of pursuing her passions. It felt almost therapeutic, the creation becoming an avenue to explore not just her writing dreams, but the possibilities outside of motherhood. However, the further she progressed, the more pangs of guilt began to surface. Was it selfish to immerse herself in this pursuit? Would Lily understand why her mother had chosen to step away from traditional roles and devote time to herself? Just then, her phone buzzed on the desk, snapping her back to reality. It was a message from Max. Thinking about our conversation yesterday. Ready for the next step? A smile broke through Sarah's turmoil. Max's belief in her was undeniable. She didn't have to walk this path alone. The support he offered felt like an anchor, grounding her as she navigated the tumultuous waters of self-discovery. Sarah felt invigorated. "Let us meet," she quickly responded, the eagerness spilling over into her words. As she sent the message, a pulse of determination surged through her. This was more than just about writing. This was a chance to unlock a version of herself that had long been concealed. In the days that followed, she began to make small commitments to herself, scheduled writing sessions in her calendar and setting aside dedicated time to reflect on her journey. Each small decision felt monumental, reinforcing her commitment to not just this budding writing career, but to her identity as a whole. However, as the clarity of her vision sharpened, a flicker of doubt returned, relentless in its pursuit. What if her efforts proved fruitless? What if she embarrassed herself in front of Max? What if she failed to balance writing and parenting, leaving her daughter's needs unmet? The internal dialogue was relentless. Guilt clawed at her, attempting to drag her back into familiar patterns of self-doubt. But she steeled herself against the noise and reaffirmed her intentions. Sarah realized that facing these doubts head-on was essential to her evolution. Later that week, Sarah met Max at their favorite coffee shop. As she walked through the door, she felt awash with anticipation and nervousness. Max watched her approach, the corner of his mouth lifting into that encouraging smile that made her heart race. "Ready to take the plunge?" Max asked, that undeniable spark of motivation still simmering between them. She took a breath, steadying herself against the whirlwind of emotion. "I think I am," she replied, forcing her voice to steady. The gravity of their shared journey weighed heavy, but she felt more prepared than ever. The truth hung in the air. They would each have to confront their fears, face their pasts, and push toward an uncertain future. But in that moment it didn't feel insurmountable. Committing to a path of vulnerability was one thing. Sharing it was another challenge entirely. Yet here she was, willing to take that risk. As they settled into deep conversation, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. There would be more revelations, deeper confrontations, and undeniable truths. The past wouldn't just melt away. It would require confrontation, careful navigation, and unconditional acceptance. What awaited them would demand resilience, and Sarah wondered, as her heart raced with anticipation and fear, if they both were ready for the trials ahead. Would they find the strength to conquer their demons, or would they let their past betray them once more? Each morning, Sarah's resolve grew stronger. The turning point she had experienced was no mere fluke. It had become a daily mantra echoing within her mind. She was not just a mother. She was a writer, an artist, a woman waking up from years of stasis. The blank page was no longer a haunting specter but a realm of endless possibility, igniting creativity with each approach to her desk. With her newfound commitment, Sarah began carving out spaces in her day dedicated to writing. She set her alarm an hour earlier, coffee brewing as the sun barely split the horizon, illuminating her small world. Those quiet moments were the most sacred, unfurling a sense of peace that encouraged her to dive deeper into her narratives. She found herself absorbed by her writing, often losing track of time, where she could safely explore the fears and aspirations that tugged at her heart. Yet, this intense immersion into her past and ambitions illuminated another question. Who was she beyond her writing? She needed strength, self-belief, and a clearer sense of purpose. To confront her fears, she decided to take an inventory of her feelings. Every day, Sarah would jot down 3 thoughts or feelings that emerged during her writing. This practice appeared simple but required vulnerability that often set her on edge. The days progressed, and Sarah felt a blend of confidence and anxiety. What would she do when it came time to share her work? The thought made her stomach twist. The doubts emerged with a vengeance, gnawing at her progress. What if her story resonated with others? But what if it didn't? But instead of letting those thoughts derail her, she bore them as well, writing them down too, forcing herself to shine a light into the depths of her psyche. One evening, while the house lay silent, Sarah felt the weight of those doubts particularly heavy. She stared at the crumpled pages scattered around her, remnants of half-formed ideas and thoughts. It felt as if they were mocking her ambitions. Grabbing the nearest notebook, she flipped through it until she reached a passage that felt pivotal, an exploration of her relationship with fear. As she read the words penned in a raw moment, clarity returned. Her struggles, her desires, were valid stories waiting to be uncovered, not only for herself but for others who might relate. The next day, armed with resolve, she arranged to meet Max again. Her pulse quickened at the thought of sharing her discoveries. They met at that familiar coffee shop, both hopeful for the session ahead. As she sat across from him, the warmth of the sun filtered through the window, bathing the table in a golden hue. Sarah's heart raced, yet this time it felt different. She wasn't just intimidated by the chance of judgment. She was enthused by the possibilities of connection, of growth, of blossoming into a self she had long been hesitant to embrace. I started an inventory, Sarah confessed, feeling nervous yet liberated. As a way for me to face my fears directly, one by one. Max raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean by inventory? It's about acknowledging my feelings each day, both the empowering and the crippling ones. She paused, drawing in a breath, holding both excitement and anxiety. I want to write the truth, not just what sounds pretty. I want to dig deeper, get real. His smile encouraged her. Yet a flicker of apprehension lit up her eyes. But what happens when I confront what's buried? The time has come to face it, Sarah. Embrace it. You might uncover something beautiful, he replied. On their discussion continued. It grew evident to Sarah that sharing more than words was vital. This was about bringing her full self into her writing, her past, present, vulnerabilities, and all as they parted ways. Sarah walked home with a glossy sense of clarity, torn between excitement and fear for the journey ahead. What she didn't anticipate was an unsolicited reminder of how unpredictably urgent change could be, an unexpected message from an old friend that would add both complication and opportunity to her burgeoning path of discovery. Would this be another fear to conquer, or a chance to redefine yet another facet of her identity? Sarah's heart raced as she pulled her phone out of her pocket and stared at the screen. The message was from Lucy, a childhood friend whose vibrant laughter had once colored her life with warmth and joy. Beneath the weight of nostalgia lay an enigmatic bitterness, as Lucy had chosen a different path, one that had catapulted her into a world of privilege amongst the elite. Hey Sarah, let us catch up. I'm back in town for a little while. Meet me at the Raven Friday? Miss our chats. The invitation felt like an electric shock. What would they talk about? Would Lucy notice the shifts that had occurred in her life, the cracks in her facade of ordinary motherhood? The other side of her, those layers of vulnerability and courage in pursuing her writing, felt stark against Lucy's glamorous lifestyle, one that revolved around dinner parties and social gatherings that Sarah had long abandoned. As she navigated her feelings, Sarah sensed the familiar swell of self-doubt threatening to sabotage her excitement. Did she want to reveal her struggles? Would she still feel like a failure in the eyes of someone who had embraced the world with ease? The trepidation clawed at her mind as she recalled Max's words about embracing her truth. Could facing her insecurities during their reunion be part of her process? Inspired to confront rather than hide, Sarah penned a quick response. Yes, would love to catch up. Friday works for me. Her fingers trembled slightly as she hit send, but a part of her felt exhilaratingly alive, signaling her desire to grow. That night, she mulled over her approach. As she reached for her trusty notebook, the one she had guardedly filled with her intimate thoughts, a new plan formed in her mind. She would tackle the complexities of her identity in her writing as a countdown to the encounter with Lucy. Each upcoming day would see increased scrutiny and exploration of her vulnerabilities, laying them bare like fresh ink on a page. The following morning brought clarity, and Sarah started by rewriting an old story about friendship, where two girls navigated their dreams and anxieties. She imprinted her emotions on the characters, trying to blend her truth into their journey. The act of writing helped diminish her apprehension and instead transformed it into a burgeoning excitement. Over the next few days, with her writing sessions growing longer and more focused, she found comfort in laying out her feelings about motherhood, ambition, and love. The words poured out with raw honesty, exposing layers of stories hidden beneath her conscious thought. Each sentence she crafted was a small yet significant declaration. She was a writer deserving of a voice, a woman with dreams that were vastly interchangeable with her new role as a mother. As Friday approached, anticipation brewed alongside her anxiety. Would Lucy understand? Would she connect to the changes in Sarah's life? Or would the chasm widen even further? The fear dragged at her thoughts, but Sarah resolved that doubt would not overshadow her determination. She donned an outfit that reflected the new version of herself, a blend of comfort and style, a representation of who she was becoming. Arriving at the Raven, a casual yet chic cafe, Sarah caught glimpses of elegant customers casually sipping their lattes while exuding infinite confidence. She felt so small amidst this sea of self-assurance, but then she reminded herself. She was here to reclaim a part of her life, a friendship that once thrived in shared ambitions. When Lucy entered, the atmosphere shifted. Her aura commanded attention without intention, elegant and poised. Sarah's pulse quickened as their eyes met. "Sarah, I was hoping you'd look just as lovely as I remembered," Lucy exclaimed, wrapping her arms around her. The warmth of the embrace a bittersweet reminder of their shared past. In that moment, standing at the intersection of nostalgia and possibility, Sarah understood clearly. This was a crucial moment, not just for their friendship, but for her own journey. Behind these walls, she could share her growth, overcome her fears, and perhaps, just perhaps, discover a friendship that could blossom again amidst the ever-changing landscape of their lives. But the lingering question remained. Would Lucy embrace Sarah's transformation, or would it lead to an uncomfortable chasm, leaving Sarah to question her worth yet again? Sarah stepped into the Raven, a familiar yet distant echo of her past life. The cafe radiated a vibrant energy, the kind that always invited new possibilities. As she waited at the bar, heart thrumming in her chest, all the confidence she had meticulously built over the last week felt as if it were slipping through her fingers. Then Lucy walked in a burst of sunlight wrapped in haute couture. The years had draped her in elegance, each step exuding an effortless grace. Sarah swallowed her apprehension. She was not the meek young woman who had once hidden in the shadows. She was a mother, a budding writer, and most importantly, she was reclaiming her identity. "Sarah, it's so good to see you," Lucy beamed, embracing her with the warmth only an old friend could convey. Their laughter filled the air, an immediate balm for the nervous energy pulsing through Sarah's veins. As they settled into a booth, the initial awkwardness of unspoken words began to fade. "Tell me about you. What has been happening?" Lucy prompted, her eyes bright with curiosity. Here it was the moment Sarah had prepared for yet felt utterly unprepared to seize. She took a deep breath, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and fear. "Well, I've been doing a lot of writing," she began, harnessing the courage that pulsed through her. "Oh wow, really? What have you been writing?" Lucy leaned closer, genuinely interested. "A little bit of everything, exploring motherhood, chasing dreams, and even some personal reflections on loss and fear," she explained, feeling the weight of her vulnerability lift slightly. "It's been liberating but also terrifying." Lucy's expression shifted, rendering the surface-level conversation into something richer. "That sounds intense," she replied, her smile fading into thoughtful contemplation. "Have you shared anything publicly?" Sarah hesitated. This was the crux of her internal dilemma, the push and pull between self-doubt and empowerment. "Not yet, but I'm working towards that. I want to find the courage to share my truths," she said, proud yet trembling on the edge of exposure. "I think that's incredible," Lucy assured, her tone earnest. You need to share those stories. They matter, Sarah. A new resolve kindled within Sarah. And what about you? She felt emboldened to ask. You're thriving in the world. What's your secret? Lucy paused, her facade of perfection momentarily flickering. Honestly, it's not as glamorous as it seems. I often feel like I'm constantly trying to prove myself in a world that expects perfection. She admitted, the cracks in her bravado revealing a complex reality. Sometimes I wonder if I've lost who I am in the process. Sarah's heart swelled with empathy. Here was Lucy, the girl who had seemingly made it, admitting her fears. We're not so different after all, Sarah said, surprising even herself with the wave of understanding that washed over her. The conversation flowed like an energetic dance, each probing question leading to revelations that dismantled the barriers built around them. Sarah began to see a glimmer of growth reflected in Lucy's struggles, a shared humanity that illuminated both their journeys. And you know what? Lucy continued, her voice gaining momentum. Your writings could reach someone who feels like they're drowning. Don't underestimate your experiences. The sincerity in Lucy's words resonated deep within Sarah. She had a voice that mattered. They finished their coffees, laughter mingling with ever-deepening conversation, but more importantly, a sense of renewal wrapped around them like a warm blanket. As they parted, Lucy drew her in for one last embrace. Sarah, I hope you know I'm rooting for you. Don't hold back. And when you publish, I want a signed copy. Deal, Sarah chuckled, feeling buoyantly free. Walking back to her car, she felt lighter. The weight of doubt that had once clung to her dissipated, burned away by the vigor of honesty and connection. The scars of her past had molded her, but they were no longer chains. They now served as stepping stones propelling her forward. The following morning, she sat at her desk, ready to put the whirlwind of feelings into words. The sun streamed through her window, illuminating the blank page before her, an inviting canvas for her rebirth. As she penned the first sentence, intricacies of her life began to weave together, creating a tapestry rich in color and depth. Each realization flowed onto the page, sending ripples of resolve throughout her being. She was reclaiming her story. She was not just a mother or a waitress. She was a writer and an architect of her own narrative. The moment she set her pen down, she felt an exhilarating jolt of accomplishment. There it was, the tangible evidence of her transformation. With each word, she forged a clarity that defined her newfound identity. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Max's name lit up the screen. I'm proud of you, Sarah. Can't wait to hear about your progress. She smiled, his faith pulling her through the remnants of her insecurities. Now more than ever, she understood the value of vulnerability and connection. She could confront the narratives around her, the judgments, the expectations, and carve out the life she desired. In that moment, she made a promise to herself. To embrace her flaws and ambitions, to share her voice, and to support others on their journeys too. Sarah realized that growth was a continual process, a commitment to facing both the dazzling and the daunting aspects of her life. As she closed her laptop, she felt the weight of possibility unfurling before her. This is just the beginning, she whispered to herself, enveloped in a wave of newfound confidence, knowing that the next chapter awaited with its kaleidoscope of potential. And indeed, Sarah was ready for whatever lay ahead. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that celebrate resilience. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and how it relates to your own experiences. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share your support for stories that inspire and uplift.